Hey everyone, it's the Asset Stacker. Hope everyone's doing well. Just wanted to do a kind of a quick video on my thoughts. I'm seeing a lot of you guys, the content creators, putting out videos lately with the question of, is junk silver trash? And junk silver being 90% silver, which is typically, we all know that it's going to be your quarters, anywhere from dimes, quarters, and half dollars. From 1964, that's 90%. So that's typically what we're going to be talking about. That being said, some of them are even throwing in their argument that junk silver is trash, and they were so disappointed, and I get it. So recently, with the spike of gold and silver going to all-time highs, the refiners were being flooded with different types of silver, obviously. People selling. And, of course, then you have the group of people that are afraid of missing out, so they go and they buy. But fear selling and fear buying on both sides. People selling because they can pull profits. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. But what it did cause is it caused the refiners to have to put a stop on buying 90% silver. So my thoughts on this, their thoughts tend to lean towards the fact that 90% got cut off, that they believe that 90% silver has lost its throne as being a good type of silver to purchase. I'll tell you why I disagree with that. So I've been doing this long enough. Of course, I don't sell. Very rarely have I ever even thought about selling anything that I buy. I stack to hold, as most of you know that watch this channel. But I've been doing it long enough to see a lot of trends. So on the buying side, when I first started stacking, there weren't very many YouTubers, I guess, that was stacking silver. Some of the older channels that are some of the larger channels today, they were around, I guess, because I did watch some. And you can go back and look at earlier videos that's been put out, and you'll find that most of them, this is where you were encouraged to start stacking. Start your stacking with 90% and let that be the base of your stack. Sounds really good, and it's not a bad idea to have a lot of this in the base of your stack. But then the trend would change a little bit, and the buying trend became the American Eagles, and how there was a huge run and spike up on content creators that these were the things. Filling a monster box became a big deal in the community. And then, of course, the premiums ended up becoming so high just a few years later that you could not hardly justify even buying an Eagle. And that became kind of a no-go kind of thing. People quit buying Eagles for a while, for the most part, and started focusing on silver that they normally would not even want you to stack in the earlier days, which was just generic junk silver. Silver like this, 1 ounce rounds and 1 ounce bars, was considered to be early on was talked about as the worst type of silver to buy. This silver was considered, and the reason why a lot of the stackers in the earlier days would try to discourage you from buying just generic rounds or generic bars was simply because their LCSs, their local coin shops, what they were buying at the time and what they were able to sell at the time, and the premium buybacks on all these different types, whether it be government bullion such as the American Eagle or say a Canadian maple leaf or something like that. So I've been in this long enough, long story short, to say that when it comes to buying, I have seen the shift, continual shift in what is a good item to buy and what's a good item to stack. And all of those recommendations at the time that they're being made tend to come from what's going on in the environment during that time. So we just witnessed silver and gold both being at all-time highs, which is exactly what we said was going to be. We've been talking about this happening for years. So obviously when the flood came of people selling, when all the sellers started to sell to try to, gain profits, it's kind of natural for the refiners to become overwhelmed. And yes, you did see that what they put a hold on first wasn't this evil generic 3/9 fine pure silver. They continued to accept that, but they did stop buying this. But that is short term. So my recommendation is this. I don't believe that your stack should consist of all American Eagles. I don't, even though these are still, the most recognizable and probably the best return. I don't know that the premiums right now are still too high. I feel like they're still too high on Eagles for the most part. I haven't bought any in a long time. But that being said, I don't necessarily buy a lot of generic rounds to hold in my stack. I don't have as much of that as I do American Eagles or other government bullion such as maple leaves. My point is, you don't need to have just one type. I think that the base of your stack, and for all stackers, I believe that you need to have a healthy mix of different types of silver. It's all silver. Yes, this is 90% silver and everything else is pure. But the truth is, there's going to be many different scenarios and early on, a lot of today's stackers really come out of a different community, and there's still a lot of this community on YouTube. They were preppers. A lot of preppers over time have evolved to become what you would call today stackers. That being said, in a collapse scenario, a collapse of the dollar, a collapse of the economy, you're going to see a different performance. If the original prepper came into silver with the ideology that silver and gold, when the dollar collapses and when the current the current system falls apart, people are going to go back to what holds real value and what has always been money forever, and that is gold and silver. So it's not the face necessarily that's going to benefit on this currency. It's what this currency is actually made of, and anything from 1964 and older is 90% silver as far as the U.S. money goes. So that being said, we've witnessed recently that in the event that the refiners are inundated with sellers, the first type of silver that they're probably going to reject is going to be non-pure silver. So 90% silver, sterling silver, like silverware, those types of products are going to, it was rejected for a period of time. But I'm reminded, like I said, I still feel like the best stack is a stack that is built of multiple types, because when one's not selling, the refiners are eager to get what was at one time very cheap. There was a time that 90% silver was not only was recommended for people to buy and put in their stack, but one of the reasons why it was suggested by LCSs is because the premium on it was much, much lower. Even when the premium on American Eagles were reasonable, like a couple of dollars over spot, they were still encouraged to buy 90% because it had a better premium. And then the premium on 90% shot up and became expensive to buy 90%. It was ridiculous for a period of time. Like I said, these all go in cycles when it goes to buying and selling. It's a cycle game. So, don't want this video to be too long, so I'm just going to get to the point. Your stack, in my opinion, needs to be made up of a healthy mix of government-issued bullion or coinage that used to be in currency. So government currency. In the U.S., it would be anything from 1964 and older. I do think that there needs to be a good ratio, and I don't know what that ratio would be, okay? But there does need to be a ratio of government bullion because it's trusted. Both of these types are trusted. But then I also think that it's a good idea to have a lot of generic in your stack, simply because generic is usually cheap. And I'm showing this as a generic just because it's not a government issue, okay? I know that there might be a little bit of a premium because it's considered, whatever. This premium on this is going to be less than a premium on this. But my point is, have some variety in your stack, because you're going to end up facing different scenarios in the future when it comes time to sell. And whatever the environment is during that time, it may be easier to sell this in that time than it is to sell this. But depending on the type of crash, this right here being fractional may be what is most desired in, like I said, a collapse of the dollar and people going back to a barter system. They're going to trust this, and they're going to trust this more than they trust this. So Warren Buffett is known for, when it talks about buying and his strategy for buying, is when it comes to a good stock, a good company, he wants to buy it when everybody else is wanting to sell. And the best time to sell is when everyone else is wanting to buy. So with that being in mind, right now, and really it's starting to get a little better on 90% silver right now, as far as the refiners are starting to take some more of it back in. But I have a local coin shop that I don't highlight them right now, but I do go to their shop, and literally right now, I'm able to go to that shop and they're selling selling this because they weren't able to sell to the refiners and they needed cash, to continue to buy and do what they do. They're selling their stockpiles, and you can get 90% silver from them for like $2 under at this time. So I could literally go in, and whatever melt is on the Morgan, I could go in, and they had tubes of Morgans, and you could buy them for $2 under. Same thing with just junk silver. No matter what denomination of currency you wanted, if you wanted all Kennedy half 64s, they had them $2 under melt. So, and that was just because at this particular point in the environment that we're in, the refiners put them in a bind, and they were willing to sell to the public for under melt because they could not sell it to the refiners for a short period of time. But as that starts to lighten up and they can take it to the refiners, then obviously these deals are not going to be there. So right now, in my opinion, if I was stacking silver, as you know, my focus right now is gold, but if my silver stack is healthy right now, I don't need to add to it. My gold stack is sick, so I'm trying to bring it up to health. I'm adding to it. If I was buying silver, I would be unloading as much as I could right now into 90%, simply because it's what everyone wants to sell. It is what everyone hates it right now compared to the way that it was in environment just a few months ago. So this is the best time, in my opinion, to get good deals on 90%. If the refiners are not wanting it and the LCSs need to offload it, you're going to be able to get it at a really good cost, because they're going to want to turn it and put their money into something else. So buy when everybody else is wanting to sell, and sell when everybody else is wanting to buy. That's my 2 cents. Just remember that we still build our wealth one asset at a time. Keep stacking.